Hi, I'm Dr. Dillon, and welcome to St. Francis Veterinary Hospital in Sylvania, Ohio. Today I'd like to talk to you about ticks. Right now it's kind of early March, and we're looking at a little bit of snow flurries this afternoon, and people, quite honestly, aren't really thinking about ticks, and ticks being a problem for their dog and cat. A few of the things that I'd like to go over is some of the myths that we have about ticks, and these are things that really persist through the years. Many people are told something and it just never gets corrected, and so we go on believing it for a long time. But a lot of things really that surround ticks, they're kind of a mystery. They're very quiet little creatures. They don't have eyes, so they don't see. They don't really go, they're not fast moving necessarily, so we just kind of disregard them, but they do hold the potential for transmitting many very pathogenic diseases that can hurt people and their animals as well. So today we're going to talk about some of these myths that are surrounded by the tick. First myth, that the best way to remove a tick is by removing it with petroleum jelly or lighting it on fire, pouring gasoline on it, and so forth. Well, the fact is that, number one, that's not a very good idea at all. I don't recommend anyone to put gasoline or lighter fluid or any other sort of flammable substance on themselves at any given time to get a tick off. Certainly burning off the tick is not a good way. The easiest way to take a tick off is to take a pair of tweezers and gently grasp the base of the tick head and gently and slowly with direct pressure pull that tick off. The tick will release over time. You do not want to try to squish the tick. You don't want to cause a lot of undue stress on the tick either, because you don't want them to secrete a lot of their saliva, which that is what really has a lot of the pathogenic bacteria in that will be transmitted into your bloodstream. So we try to keep the tick calm and just gently get at its base of the mouth parts and slowly, with gentle pressure, pull up. That also helps to release a lot of the cementum, or the very sticky, solid, almost concrete-like fluid that's surrounding the tick mouth parts that are embedded then into your skin, or your dog's skin for that matter. So we just want to make sure that we remove the tick very slowly and with direct pressure with a pair of tweezers. The second myth is that Lyme disease is the only disease that can be transmitted to both humans and dogs from ticks. Well, that is a myth as well. The fact is that there are many other diseases, two of which we test routinely here in our heartworm tests, which are anaplasmosis and ehrlichiosis. So just on that, on the idea that Lyme disease is the only one we have to worry about, that's not true. Humans can get anaplasmosis, humans can get ehrlichiosis, we can certainly get Lyme disease. And when we do a heartworm test, we're actually testing for both heartworm as well as Lyme disease, as well as Ehrlichia, and of course then anaplasmosis. The third myth that we have is that if you find a tick on yourself, you should get it. You should be tested immediately for Lyme disease. That, in fact, is wrong because it takes time for your body to build up antibodies. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks before a test would come back as positive for Lyme disease. So if you do have a tick that has bitten you, you should, number one, remove the tick like I just talked about previously. Number two, save the tick in alcohol, just in case you may need to identify that tick later on. But also, wash out the area once you remove that tick. From that area that, hey, the tick had bitten you. You want to make sure you wash thoroughly the area with soap and water, especially just soapy water, just copious amounts of water. Really flush and lavage that area out. You do want to look for a red ring typically around that bite area. Typically within 24 hours, you're going to find that ring may develop. If you see that, you really should be thinking about seeing your doctor as soon as possible and take the tick with you. The fourth myth would be ticks aren't a problem in the winter. This is one of the questions that I get all the time, is that do I really need to worry about that, doc, on my dog if because ticks aren't out and it's it's snowing? Well, I can tell you the answer, and most people in the know, professionals, entomologists, etc., will tell you that absolutely ticks are a year-round problem. In the wintertime or in the late fall, when it starts getting cooler, ticks actually will move closer to heat sources. So they'll move closer to your foundation of the house, they'll move near your garage, they'll be much more apt to get near your pets. And so ticks also produce like a form of antifreeze in their bodies. So when they overwinter, they actually can go into almost a hibernation type state, and they don't freeze. Many ticks can last for many years. I've heard as long as 10 years at least. So we do have to be cognizant of the fact that these ticks are going to be out. They're going to be around our homes when it gets cooler out, and if we're letting the dog in and out or the cat goes in and out, they can be bringing those little critters back in on them, and potentially then infecting us in our beds, in the areas where our children crawl around on the floor and so forth, in the house. So it's a good idea to keep your animal on year-round tick prevention because of that very fact. The fifth myth that we have. The fifth myth is ticks live in trees. This is a great one that a lot of people think is true, and the fact is that it's not. I myself, years ago, thought that yes, ticks lived in trees. Before I was a biology student. So that was one of those things that we learned very quickly, that wasn't the case. It's very simple to think about ticks and where they might be at. They are going to be from your knee and below. So anything higher than your knee, probably a tick isn't going to necessarily be on it. Ticks are going to be on the ground. Ticks will go up shafts of grasses, even some of the taller weeds and so forth, and they will get up and wait for an animal or you to brush by so that they can then latch on and hitch a ride on you. And then what they'll do, since they don't fall from trees, they actually climb up your leg all the way up your torso, and typically will go to the areas of your groin, your armpit areas, your axilla, and then onto the top of your head. That's not exclusive, but that's usually where they like to go. Again, they seek out warmer places. So they don't fall from the trees, they're coming up from the ground. So don't look up, look down. And myth number 6, ticks are insects. Ticks are not insects. They are actually from the arachnid family. They're more akin to mites. So your average house dust mite is probably closer to a tick than the houseflies. So just remember that they are arachnids. Thus, they have 8 legs. So that's another good way of identifying ticks. So just make sure you remember those little things that these myths are easily debunked. The best thing to do is to always take care of your ticks by not having them in the first place, making sure that your dog and your cat are protected against ticks year-round. Make sure that you are very, very careful in areas that are known to have ticks, and always take good preventative measures to prevent any sort of bite. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.